President Biden's personal doctor confirming that a neurologist who specializes in Parkinson's saw the president as part of his physical exams. The president's doctor saying in a letter that the neurologist, Dr. Kevin Kennard, has examined President Biden for each of his annual exams, adding the president has not seen a neurologist outside of his annual physical.
Treated for Parkinson's? No. Is he being treated for Parkinson's? No, he's not. Is he taking medication for Parkinson's? No.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. If any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me in the convention.
Welcome to the Reaction Radar. All right, folks, buckle up. We can blow the lid off of everything you thought you knew. Today, we're going to be looking into the biggest revelation about who was running the country. Without any further ado, let us dive into this and see who's behind the scenes.
So Republican lawmakers are demanding answers from President Biden's physician and other former White House officials over what they knew, when they knew it, regarding former President Biden's health issues.
Yeah, senior White House correspondent, the younger Peter Ducey, joins us now with more. Peter.
Good morning. And the small group of staffers that formed a tight circle around Joe Biden for his one and only term all just got letters from the House Oversight Committee to come in and explain what they did or did not do to conceal his decline from the American public. So the following Biden folks, go check your mail. His former physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, the former director of the Domestic Policy Council, Neera Tanden, the former assistant to the president and chief of staff to the First Lady, Anthony Bernal, the former assistant to the president and deputy chief of staff, Annie Tomasini, and the former deputy assistant to the president and director of strategic outreach, Ashley Williams.
They're behind the scenes. They fly under the radar. These are the unelected bureaucrats that we believe had an overwhelming influence over Joe Biden and could have possibly been serving as de facto presidents of the United States.
Well, now one of the most legendary Democratic thinkers of the last century believes that nothing coming out this week should be that big of a surprise because the American people told pollsters it was a problem 2 years ago.
I think that Jake and those
I'm going to jump in here real quick because that was a thing. A lot of folks were saying that there was something wrong with President Biden. And of course, the opposite side of the political aisle kept saying, oh, this is a conspiracy. You guys are delusional. You're crazy. Again, for those of you that watch my show, you know where I stand. I'm neither left nor right. I'm in the middle. But I also like to give credit where credit is due. Again, I don't care what side of the aisle President Biden was on. Okay? But my thing is this. He was the president of the United States of America. And for you guys to come out and have this man basically get embarrassed, questions need to be answered, charges need to be filed. You guys were making fun of this guy, making him into a puppet. Are you serious? This is the president of the United States of America. So I definitely think questions need to be answered, charges need to be filed, And then there were this question, or these comments that came up about the auto pen, that signatures were being forged with the auto pen, So without any further ado, let's get back into this.
it was a good book, but to me it was a water's wet book. Like I said, 80% of the country. I'll never forget, in May of 2023, to be exact, I saw a Washington Post ABC poll, and I went, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And it never changed.
And then again, all of this stuff only broke after that news reporter put out a book. So you're making money off of the president? Really?
I asked Caroline Levitt if President Trump has followed up yet with folks that work in the offices here or that work in the residence to find some kind of files or some kind of backup to all of these Republican assertions that there were these de facto presidents, and she said that he has not yet. Back to you.
All right, Peter. The scandal continues. I think this is the right move. It needs to happen. It's important. We need to figure out who was running the White House.
Yeah.
When did they know the president was in decline? Everybody needs to be sworn under oath. And people should lose their jobs, the next job they want. They shouldn't be hired.
I completely agree. Because, you know, this is not just a, oops, I forgot to send an email, or hey, I'm sorry I didn't get that task done when you needed to be done. Are you serious? This is the President of the United States of America. You were in the White House. So you knew something was wrong with the president. You said and did nothing. And on top of that, you were trying to run the country unelected?
Hired as analysts, they shouldn't be.
But what are your thoughts about this? Drop it in the comment for me, and I would love to see what your thought process is on this.
Hired at these big consulting firms or defense contracting jobs as well. They concealed the president's health. And honestly, the more and more we're learning from the book, it is clear no one told Joe Biden that he had lost a step. That's normal. That is normal in some point in time for someone to be in denial of their health situation when they have dementia or any type of cognitive decline. But it's up to the family and the people that surround the person to let them know. No one told the president.
That is just simply sad. Sad, sad, sad.
I do want to point out that President Biden had his faculties when he was a United States Senator and took classified documents.
Sure.
He also had his faculties when he was the vice president, and he also took classified information. And then he also had his mental faculties when he told his ghostwriter in 2017 that he knew he had classified information. So he is in the wrong here, and he should have been charged, in my opinion. But I think what's wild, well, first of all, it infuriates me that Jake Tapper is making money off this since he was part of that conspiracy and cover-up. But besides that point, what's crazy to me is this all began back in like 2019 for the 2020 campaign. He forgot an aide's name that he has known since 1981, Joey.
Yeah, you know,
That's wow. You know, I get what she was trying to do here, okay? And yes, it is warranted so. But in my opinion, you know, I call it out on both sides, you know, left and right. I think that was a little bit distasteful, you know, because here's my thing about it, right? To say that he was in his faculties and this and that. Okay, yes, we get it. He may have done wrong. He might have done right, okay? But this is my scenario on this. At this point in time, seeing Joe like this, right? It's like having two competitor teams get together, whatever your team is. You have a player that got hurt. They're down on the line, you know. Yeah, you're excited that your team is winning, but at the same time, out of respect, you're now, you know, giving a prayer or a lifeline. You're giving it out to a respect given out to that injured player, right? You don't go, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna get him. No, it's understood. The person's already down, right? Regardless of if you like them or not, they're down. So you got to give them that, you know, that little helping hand, a little leeway. Not saying that whatever he did was right, but I think that was a cheap shot that she threw in there at that point in time. You know, it could have been a little bit more, you know, planned out, a little more professional, but what do you think so far?
The Constitution specifies the minimum age a president has to be. So even the founders took into account mental acuity and maturity. I don't think they were as concerned about the latter end because, quite frankly, that long ago you didn't live as long. I mean, that's just the truth of it. And I don't know if it's legislation. Obviously, the idea of any type of constitutional amendment at this point, as divided as we are, is probably pretty thin. But I feel like the real consequence here needs to be a piece of legislation that says we have more access to the medical records of a presidential candidate. I understand HIPAA and I believe in privacy 100%, but only one person gets to be president. Only a couple or a handful get to run for it, and you got to give up something to have that opportunity and responsibility. The real problem here, if you take all the politics, all the partisan parts away, regardless if you like what was happening under President Biden or not, the real problem is, can a group of people lie to the American people and put a charade in front of the American people?
And that's what I completely do not agree with. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys would think the same thing too, you know.
And convince the American people to vote and put their trust and faith in someone to lead their country for now or 4 more years when that person couldn't lead his own daily schedule. And that's not even belittling Joe Biden. That's being honest about the state that now we're learning everyone knew he was in.
And they concealed it from American people. So the Democrats have two problems. They have the Biden problem of lying to the American people for looks like almost a decade that he's been in decline. They lied to the American people on that. The other part is they have an identity crisis and they don't know how to communicate to the American people on basic things. And
so we're going to leave this here. What are your thought process on this? I would love to hear what you have to say. And my question is this. We have a president and we have a vice president. Again, put aside your political differences right now, who your political party is. If something was wrong with the president or he needed to take time off, why couldn't his loved ones or the people that were there to help him, his advisors and things of this nature, why couldn't they just come out and say, and I get it, like the gentleman said about the HIPAA. I get that, right? You may not want to come out and tell everybody everything that's going on, but you could have always said something along the lines like, hey, the president's going to be taking a little break. He's a little bit under the weather, what have you. You don't have to come out and say he's got A, B, C, X, Y, Z, right? Come out and say, he's going to be taking some time off. He need a little bit of relaxation or what have you. And then the vice president steps in. The vice president steps in and does what they would do in that position, But as usual, thank you for joining in. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, stay informed and engaged. Have a good one.